Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Shoaib Yusuf. I am a solutions architect for the SD-WAN product. I've been with Citrix for about 13 years and currently based out of San Diego. And in this particular demo session of SD-WAN, I'll be showcasing some of the Citrix SD-WAN use cases that help modernize a customer's network. So there's 3 demonstrations planned for today. I'll demo how Citrix SD-WAN can first enable customers to migrate workloads to cloud leveraging Azure Virtual WAN. And then I'll highlight a use case where we can optimize a work from home with the Citrix SD-WAN 110 LTE device. And lastly, we'll look at a use case for efficiently protecting the branch with integrated edge security stack. So before we get into that, let's take a quick look at the lab topology where we'll be working most of the demos today. We'll have our demo center on the bottom left, and that's where the data center resides with an SD-WAN device. And on the right of that, we have a cloud-hosted site in Azure. And next to that, a branch site location, and finally, a home user site. We'll make full use of this lab topology for the various demonstrations scheduled for today to highlight some of the use cases that the Citrix SD-WAN solution can be used for. We'll also be using SD-WAN Orchestrator as a management tool to communicate to these devices and manage the network connectivity between the sites. So diving into the first topic, Citrix SD-WAN eases the migration to cloud by taking care of connectivity requirements between on-premise sites to cloud infrastructure. So this particular use case can be accomplished in a few ways. We'll look at both. So as resources are migrated from the data center on the left to cloud on the right, enabling reliable connectivity to those resources from any on-prem site locations can be accomplished by provisioning an SD-WAN device at the edge of the on-premise site and at the edge of the cloud network. You'll get all the benefits of an SD-WAN overlay leveraging different types of WAN transports available at the on-premise locations. As workloads are migrated to the cloud, there are more dependencies on the stability of the wide area network. The quality and availability of that last mile for those remote branch offices to cloud have become a weak point in the network. And the availability of that last mile needs to be hardened with an SD-WAN solution. So they typically rely on internet connectivity to the cloud. Since having an express route type connection to every branch office becomes costly, we solve that problem with an SD-WAN solution where we can make use of multiple diverse WAN link types, including LTE, to increase the availability and reliability of that last mile. Now, getting into the first demonstration that we have planned for today, there is another way of solving the same last mile problem of the branch, and that again leverages SD-WAN technology to accomplish the same goal of accessing resources that have been migrated to the cloud. Microsoft's Azure Virtual WAN again makes use of internet for last mile connectivity and then provides the use of Microsoft's global network to provide a reliable low latency backbone for intercommunication between sites. And that bridges the gap between sites in different geographical regions. The value here is you're able to overcome typical shortcomings of internet across long distances by riding the Microsoft global network. Again, there is still that problem of last mile where we can make use of a Citrix SD-WAN device at the on-premise locations to establish connectivity to the closest possible point of presence in the form of IPsec tunnels. And because the SD-WAN can provision dual tunnels to the same hub, leveraging different internet service providers, you are improving availability and improving reliability of that last mile. Setting up VPN tunnels can be created manually, so that's not too difficult. However, That would be very tedious and time consuming, especially if we have a lot of branches to deal with. We can make use of Citrix SD-WAN devices that are already deployed within the network and ease the rollout of Azure Virtual WAN. How SD-WAN Orchestrator contributes to this solution is a layer of management that can communicate with both on-prem SD-WAN devices and Azure infrastructure to easily deploy the solution at large scale for branch connectivity. Through API, the deployment process is simplified and automated. So that leads us into the demo. So with that information in mind, let's put that into action with our first demonstration of how we set up Azure Virtual WAN using SD-WAN Orchestrator. So first, I'll start with my Azure portal. And within my Azure portal, I've created a virtual WAN resource. Within that resource, I've also created a hub in one of the available regions. This just takes a few clicks to create. However, the process does take about 30 minutes to provision, so I've gone and done that ahead of time to save us some time here. Azure allows one hub per region, and for that hub, I've made sure to enable site-to-site VPN, which will be used to establish IPsec tunnels from the hub to the branch office SD-WAN devices. In addition to that, I've also created a service principal in Azure, allowing SD-WAN Orchestrator to authenticate to Azure APIs that enable for automated connectivity between virtual WAN and the SD-WAN devices that are on-prem. A registered app was also created in the same resource group as the virtual WAN with the appropriate role permissions. Okay, so with that in mind, let's look at SD-WAN Orchestrator. We'll complete the configuration for the setup of Azure Virtual WAN here. So I'm starting with an SD-WAN solution that is already deployed. I have a few branch offices connected to my MCN node in the data center. Okay, so we can globally enable delivery services for Azure Virtual WAN by simply allocating a percentage of bandwidth for that virtual WAN delivery service. This centrally enables that functionality for potentially thousands of remote offices. Next, we'll enter Azure subscription credentials. I'm going to do this offline just for security purposes. So give me a few moments. So we enter in the subscription ID, the client ID for the registered app, the security key that's created for that registered app, and the tenant ID. I'm just going to save that information, and with that inputted, okay, so with that in place, we can make the association between the available Azure Virtual WAN in our subscription and the branch site available in the orchestrator configuration. As we add a site, the table will populate with Azure Virtual WAN information pulled from that Azure subscription that we linked to Orchestrator. So those are available. The Azure Hub is available as well. This is a very simple lab with minimal amount of sites, but you can select multiple sites here simultaneously to enable this functionality, so that the same API requests are issued across all the desired sites. And that's where really the value of this solution comes into play. Automating a lot of the work that typically would have to be done manually. We'll just select a couple sites for our demonstration purpose. And with that, the rest is automated by Orchestrator by leveraging API communication between the two cloud services, Citrix Cloud and Azure. The status will update as it goes through the various stages of the deployment, updating the remote site devices with the IPsec configuration so that the remote sites have an entry point into workloads available now in Azure VNet through the SD-WAN. and also updating the Azure subscription with the expected public IPs of those incoming site IPN tunnels from the SD-WAN devices. So while that goes, we'll continue the presentation here. So we've looked at how to create Citrix SD-WAN and extend the network reach into Azure. In our next demonstration, we'll look at how the solution extends the reach into the home office. With routing domain capabilities on the SD-WAN solution, more commonly known as VRF Lite, we can easily add new segments of the network. So we have an existing deployment of SD-WAN with virtual path between sites, but we can add a new routing domain to introduce the home users and isolate the new segment from the remainder of the deployment. Each routing domain creates a separate route table on the SD-WAN device. And at the data center and remote branches, which potentially could be closer to home users, we can dedicate specific interfaces or VLANs to limited resources and make them available only to the new user's routing domain. This allows you to build out your network to include home workers and teleworkers and keep them connected and isolated to access strategically located resources, whether they're in the branch or in the data center. With the SD-WAN 110 platform, there is an additional layer of simplicity with a built-in integrated LTE modem. We can make use of the existing home internet WAN link as one WAN link and increase the reliability of the wide area network by augmenting that bandwidth with an LTE provider. So again, we are addressing a common problem of remote locations where the last mile connectivity over internet needs to be enhanced with an SD-WAN solution, helping to ensure that home users stay productive. So for the home user use case of SD-WAN, Orchestrator again plays a key role of simplifying the deployment, and I'll demonstrate how you can quickly set that up. You can easily add routing domains as needed. I've already created a home user routing domain. Then you could associate that routing domain to any site's interface with the new routing domain by configuring it at the site's basic configuration. Interfaces can support multiple virtual interfaces on different VLAN IDs and associated subnets. But with that simple configuration, with the site's configuration complete, that site can now be used as a site profile to centrally manage all associated sites for attributes that are common to the home user deployment. So here, making changes to any site details, interface details, WAN links at the profile level will automatically make the associated changes to all the hundreds or even thousands of sites in parallel, significantly simplifying the management of the SD-WAN deployment for home user use case. Once the home user node is created, then you simply associate a serial number of that 110 device intended to use with that configuration. So we'll go ahead and do that now. And with that saved, the final step is actually to deploy this via zero touch. So with that serial number in place, the device will call home and self-provision. So the device automatically gets provisioned and joined to the existing SD-WAN deployment with that zero touch process. And all the on-site installer would have to do is to cable for internet and power on the SD-WAN 110 device. And I'll move that over and activate as it completes the staging process and continue here with the presentation. So we've extended the network to the cloud with Azure Virtual WAN, and we've extended the network into the home with the 110 platform. The last demonstration for today will cover security choices for the branch office, which becomes a very important topic as companies see the opportunity to streamline and consolidate their networking footprint at the branch locations before workers start trickling back into offices. There are 4 distinct security choices with the Citrix SD-WAN devices. On our platform models, on all the platform models, the solution comes equipped with a enterprise-grade stateful firewall to enable local internet breakout at any site location. So that significantly improves access to any SaaS applications with direct low latency connectivity. Optionally, all platform models have the capability to establish IPsec tunnels to off-prem firewall solutions by partnering with secure web gateway vendors like Zscaler, iBoss, ForcePoint, Palo Alto Networks, Checkpoint, and Symantec. Also, there is an option to host next-generation firewalls like Palo Alto Networks VM series and Checkpoint CloudGuard Edge. And those can be used as virtual network functions directly on select platforms such as the 1100. And lastly, the 4th option provides integrated edge security functions such as intrusion prevention, web filtering, and malware protection with Advanced Edition platform, which is currently available on the 1100. We'll look more closely in our demonstration at that 4th option, Advanced Edition. So again, Orchestrator is used to simplify the deployment and management of the network security stack. We'll enable edge security functionality for the remote sites by first updating the software version. We'll select 11.2. So with release 11.2, this is where the feature functionality was introduced for the edge security stack. And with that, we'll select the appropriate platform site and update the edition from the site's detail. From Standard Edition to AE, which represents Advanced Edition. This will unlock the edge security stack capabilities on this site's device. We'll also input the serial number of this device for zero touch. All edge security enabled devices can be centrally managed in Orchestrator using security profiles. I've gone ahead and created a security profile here, but profiles can be defined with any of the various edge security feature stacks that are available. The first one, web filtering, can be enabled, and with that, we can block or flag categories like social networking in general, or specific sites, and override block categories by bypassing certain sites, like allowing Twitter while still blocking the all others in the general category. We can be more granular down to a specific client IP if needed. Intrusion prevention can be enabled, and it has some default rules in place which can be customized as needed. We'll look at this a little bit in more detail. And anti-malware is also available and can be enabled. And by default, this functionality scans 41 file types for any virus-infected files, and up to 10 MIME types, including HTTP, FTP, and SMTP files. So we'll go ahead and save that. And as mentioned earlier, intrusion prevention rules can be defined manually. There are 4 predefined rules, but you can add new rules as needed. Now, with that security profile available, we can use that security profile by creating a global firewall policy to redirect internet traffic, bound traffic, to the edge security stack. Now, in creating that AE profile, we can identify the scope of the firewall policy to, again, impact all the sites or impact specific sites that we're trying to target. The policy then can be a firewall rule can then be configured to be IP protocol in terms of match type, and filter criteria can be in place to and customized to be very specific or to catch all, and with an action to inspect and deliver using the security profile that we configured and enabled. And with that, the last step is to actually deploy this centrally using SD-WAN orchestrator with the zero-touch deployment process. So there's more use cases to our Citrix SD-WAN solution. However, now you have a good idea of some popular use cases that can help modernize your network. Now, you'll be able to find this presentation along with other SD-WAN resources available on the Resource Center. Thank you for your attention.